Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. So, August, July, summer, nearing the close. Scary how fast time has gone. Scary how close I am getting to somehow already have been doing this for a year. That is freakish. I can't believe it. Seems like I've been doing it for a lot longer. But you guys have made it very enjoyable. So, as always, let's talk about games you need to know on crowdfunding in August. Games of note, games that are going to raise the most cash, and just games that I find interesting for some various reason or another, whether or not I'm going to be trying to get hands-on copies of them, whether I have hands-on copies of them, or I just want to know more about them in general. As always, there's always a tons of surprises that lay along the way, so this is sort of a disclaimer. And, you know, there's still a bunch of stuff that we still don't have dates for between now and the end of the year, so it's always interesting to see what pops up then. So, let's do this, right? Let's go. Let's go. So, instead of going straight to the screen, we'll go, boom, up there, Lands of Galzyr. So, my review was out this past week. Open world, sandbox game. Lighter than I was expecting, in a good way. It's very zen-like, it's very peaceful, it's a great game, just open, exploring. You want to just go do what you want. It is the definition of a sandbox game. It gives you the freedom. You are not going to be able to explore any of it to any significant degree in one play, two plays, or three plays, even if you're playing solo and getting extra turns and rounds in it. The carryover is there. The game really depends on the carryover. It really is going to get its full effect if you play it over time, over multiple sessions. And you can link those sessions right in a row. It's not that you have to stop after you play one session. You can save, you can come back to it, you can play right again in a row. It works well for what it is. It simplifies sort of the Destiny's Seventh Continent style mashup and just makes it much more easily accessible in and out and on the table. And it's probably, dare I say, better to look at on the table than any of those games either. Here's the Gamefound page before it launches. There's not a ton of info on there already, but you get to see a little bit of what it is. These dice are your skill dice. You're rolling black dice, and then the skills that you have replace one of those black dice so that you're rolling and you're doing a little bit of Yahtzee, but not really. You're really getting one reroll. You're going to have cards, equipment, allies, keywords that are going to allow you to mitigate those rolls. And it's going to be web page driven. And now, again, check out my review. The web page is super easy to use. They say you can already download it, and it prevents you from having a manual, like, say, a foot thick, of what happens in these various scenarios where you're flipping from page 18 to 794 to figure out what sequence events goes on based on how many successes that you rolled on a certain event. So, there you go. Prestige. Again, it is very easy to use. It's very straightforward. I'm hoping maybe my video will make this page. I'm not expecting anything, but it's out there. If it's for you, check out my video if you want to know more, because it's definitely a different take on things, and I think it's going to surprise people. One, that we're expecting something heavier, that this is not, but two, also from a very pleasant side of things in terms of what it may offer. Look, the second one has to be up on this one. Launching the next day on August 3, this is Arydia, The Past We Dare Tread. Now, I wanted to get a hands-on with this one too, especially because I wanted to compare them heads to head. However, I'm not high enough up on the totem pole right now to get a lot of things, and so I really also give a lot of kudos for those that are willing to even send me games in the first place. This is the other big hyped one of the month. No doubt about it. This one has been hyped for the past 3 or 4 years from the person, Cody, I believe, that made Zaya, the spacefaring game. This is another take on this open world style game. Now, this one seems like this is more combat heavy, where you are going to have to be battling off in a more fantasy-esque realm of things with a save mechanism, with an upgrade, sort of more of an RPG-esque theme, where where Lands of Galzyr is not. So I don't think necessarily they're going to be going head to head where if you get one, you don't need the other. I think they're going to be two distinctly unique, different products that you could equally have on your shelf. Now, granted, not having played Arydia, though. The one thing that I was missing that I would have liked to see on Galzyr was more of the progression, leveling up, getting stronger, that sort of thing, like a lot of RPGs and dungeon crawlers have, and Arydia is going to have that. So again, that goes back to the fact that I just said, I think they're going to be two different sweet spots, and you could easily have them both on your shelf without too much overlap, apart from the fact that they're more open world style games, and you can save, with that being the similarity. The other big difference is, although this is marked as a legacy game, It also says you can completely reset it, which is completely different than all of the other legacy games out there, including Divinus, which is on Gamefound right now. So we're going to kind of just have to see what this is, what the price point is, because if it's anything, like I don't know what Galzyr's price point is. I think it's going to be a little bit lower based on what I have, but it's a lot of cards too, so I wouldn't be surprised. I think this is going to be more expensive. Is this going to be as expensive as the all-in for, or the gameplay all-in for Divinus? I don't know, but I'm thinking it's going to be something around that price point, just knowing what this is entailing in the first place. This is probably one of the more hyped games, and it's just going to be interesting to see because Divinus is not highly funded as I would have expected because of the nature of it. And the question is going to be, because both of these other two games, I think the expectation is sometimes one thing and the reality is another, and sometimes the funding surpasses it, and sometimes the funding is less than what we might often think. And I say that as a good thing both ways, because I want people to get a game that they like, not a game that they think they're going to like. Either way, Arydia is probably the one I'm most hyped for that I haven't played. So there you go. Launching on August 3, Arydia. Another one that I've been angling to get a copy or to play a chance of, but I don't think it's going to happen, is Mythic Mischief from IV Games. And they just, there's going to be a ton of video content out there. You know, I think they must have an embargo, but it's launching on the 31st, so I'm doing these completely out of order this month. But on social media, like 2 weeks ago, there were a whole bunch of all of the biggest names from like the Dice Tower previews, Quackalope, Board Game Co., Before You Play. They were all like down where IV Games is. They all got like invited down there and taped a bunch of stuff for this game. And so you're going to see all of those people probably have videos, and they were very high on it. This is from the people who did Moonrakers as well as Veiled Fate. So again, it's coming from a very good pedigree of quality games. Again, it's just going to be, my big holdup with Veiled Fate was the price point was just massive for what it was. And I'm hoping that the same thing is not going to happen with Mythic Mischief, because I really think this could be a game that I like. So basically, you are these middle school magical fantasy students, and you are trying to cause the most mischief, rearranging tombs in a library and trying to do so and score the most points before the tomb master, the librarian, if you will, returns all the tombs at the end of lunch, and whoever does the most at the end wins. You have a unique asymmetric faction that you're going to be able to upgrade your abilities for and customize in that way. And it just sounds like a good combination of something that would be a lot of fun that I think you could play with a wide range of people. There's not a whole lot of other information out there, but like I said, based on the social media pictures and the comments on that, I expect to see a lot of information out of it. How much prior to launch, who knows? But definitely probably by the end of the month when it launches on the 31st as well. Super interested to see what this one looks like. Mythic Mischief from IV Games. Look, also launching on August 3 is Green Hell, the board game. I know next to nothing about this except that it has an electronic counterpart, that this is the IP based off of it. It is a 1 to 4 player cooperative survival campaign style game, not legacy, and they're very clear about that. You are part of a survival search and rescue team sent into the Amazon jungle trying to rescue a certain person. They are taking an unpredictable jungle as your enemy and the core mechanic, and you are having to go up against it using various survival mechanics. The key jungle mechanic that they talk about will create unpredictability, and as well as wandering around trying to find your way through it in a lost system that's not so easy to navigate. And you are going to have to craft, you're going to have to upgrade, you are going to have to use the asymmetric abilities, and not powers, but ways in which your character can help out in order to survive. Collecting resources, putting them in your backpack, creating camp, surviving. It is taking that in a nutshell and distilling it into a cooperative board game form. They talk about trying to eliminate a lot of the randomness for the sake of randomness in a game like this, but also the fact that you will have luck. There is bad luck, and they call it the creepy tree, where you're going to be rolling to see how much bad luck you have, to see what happens overnight. As when you set up your camp, you're going to also have to try to decide, what are you going to prioritize? The animal trap, the water collection, the beds, the safety in terms of the jungle survival. What are you going to do? And so I know next to nothing about the IP, so I'm going to be interested to see it more from just a pure board game side of things rather than nostalgia for the electronic version. I know copies are floating around out there. I was too late to get in on them, so we're going to have to see it firsthand together, launching on the 3rd. Check it out. Next up, Black Rose Wars Rebirth. This is one I talked about as well. That was in the Q3 of Games to Know, because it raised over 7 figures with the first edition. This is a Rebirth edition where the lodge, the order of all of these different factions of mages has been destroyed, and you are trying to sift through the ruins, battle your way back to rebuild it, and go against other clans, factions in order to do so. And it's competitive, it's deck building, it's strategy, it's heavy, heavy. Take that on a map. And there was a lot of Kickstarter exclusive. There was a lot of content. Ludus Magnus sort of got mixed reception because of the big expansion box, the Sator box, as it was called at the time. They tried to add a whole bunch more stuff that people weren't expecting, and then they tried to charge late shipping because it was obviously going to cost a lot more to ship than they originally planned. People didn't take it that well, so the game itself has been relatively well received, but I think the biggest criticism as well was, in an asymmetric battling mage style type game with multiple factions on the board at the same time, you have take that, a ton of, and there's no player elimination, because if your characters get killed, that's how you score points. That's one of the ways you score points, and they just respawn then. But for what people were saying, it was about a 3-hour game that should have been about an hour. And so that was probably one of the biggest criticisms, as well as if you didn't get the Kickstarter content, there was a lot of content that was in the Kickstarter that if you got it at retail, it didn't feel as quite complete, that I think people were concerned about. So we'll see what happens with this and what they decide to do differently in this time. You're going to be having obviously the same sort of setup in rooms of hexagons that are going to be able to be managed. Again, tons of different factions. You're trying to get the power of, the forbidden magic, and, you're trying to just win. And so the question is going to be, again, with Ludus Magnus, as with several of the other games and game systems and iterations, how much improvement have they made the second time around? And is the second time around going to make the first time just much less desirable? It happens. It does. Kingdom Rush, for example, for me. Second one, much better than the first one. Takes care of the criticisms and the issues. We'll see whether or not this does the same thing. August 24, check it out. Look, I may not be able to acquire it. It's only going to be over in the EU, but this is Masters of the Universe Fields of Eternia by Archon Studio, launching on August 10. And it's going to go head-to-head at some point with the CMON version, which is over here in North America, so it's worth talking about. The problem is, there's not a whole lot of information. And it even says up here, still subject to final licensor approval. So how much of this is actually going to be available? There's not a whole lot of information. There's next to none. Action, adventure-driven strategy, tactical card game with deck building. That doesn't tell me anything. I mean, it's going to be interesting. It looks like there's going to be maybe some area control. Almost gives me a War of the Rings vibe, if you will. But different locations. I'm assuming different things at those said locations. Going to be rolling dice a lot. I have no idea what else to expect. But it's an IP, and the question is going to be, how does CMONs compare? Are they going to go head-to-head? Is there going to be overlap? What's the price point going to be? Is it going to be better to be on one side of the pond or the other? I mean, eyes are going to be on it. Funds are going to be on it if it looks good. So we'll see what it looks like on August 10. Masters of the Universe, Fields of Eternia. Last but not least, we have Almanac, the Crystal Peaks. This is the second in the Almanac game series from Scott Alms, and this is a game of travel, trade, and adventure. The first one was the Dragon Road, and you'll see here, also in the picture, launching head-to-head with Arydia on the 3rd of August. This is a different style of games where each page on the book is a different area where you have special mechanics in terms of worker placement and actions, and what you're trying to do is go across and adventure and trade and upgrade as you go. Fantasy, pick up and deliver, worker placement, all in this game, all with what they say is a different action bidding style mechanism. So we'll have to see what it actually looks like and how different is it from the first iteration. The first game, from the Kickstarter comments and the Board Game Geek comments, state that it is a light worker style placement game, but given each page it differently interacts, you have what they say from the first game is 17 mini light style worker placement games, all unique in one book. Easy to get to the table, easy pack up, easy setup, easy tear down. Is that appealing to you? Does it sound good? If so, check it out when it launches on the 3rd. There you go. That's it. That is the big stuff so far that we know in August. Again, going to be tons of surprises. I'm still waiting for Slay the Spire. I'm not even sure it's going to be before the end of 2021 at this point. Prove me wrong, Slay the Spire. As always, there's going to be tons of surprises along the way. I'm going to put out a ton of stuff, in the month of August. We'll see what comes along the way. See who I can get to send me games to show you guys so that you guys can have as much information as possible. And again, it's August. Let me know what you want. Should I do something special for the year anniversary later in September? I have no idea. I'm open. Just want to have a good time. Want to give you guys more information, my opinion, all of that rolled into one. Either way, thanks for watching. Thanks for making this almost full year enjoyable. Have a great week. Stay classy. I'll see you around.